Come on, hold your daughter and look at her face. The day after I gave birth at 40, I showed our baby to my beloved husband. He must have been eagerly waiting for this moment. The emotional first meeting of father and child. What reaction would he show? I thought as I looked at his face. 3 seconds after he smiled and peered at our daughter, he suddenly turned pale and froze. I had thought he would be overjoyed, with a bright face and tearful eyes. Puzzled, I asked him, "What's up? Something wrong?"
No, nothing.
Who could have predicted the tumultuous events that would follow? My name is Karen Carpenter. I'm a 40-year-old working mom with a full-time job. After graduating from college, I landed a job at my first-choice company. Since then, I've been dedicated to my career. In my 20s, I was in a long-term relationship, but it ended after I discovered his infidelity. After that, I threw myself even more into my work and was the first among my peers to get promoted. By the time I was around 30, all my friends were getting married and having kids. I felt like an outsider, congratulating them somewhat distantly. Since then, I've resigned myself to the idea that marriage and children were not in the cards for me. I've been single ever since. After being promoted to department manager at 37, work became even busy, leaving no room for romance. During this time, a younger colleague I was fond of, Tyler Perry, said to me,
"Karen, I know you're busy with work, but maybe it's time to think about your own happiness."
Tyler was about 35 then. He already had a family and was known in the company as a dedicated dad. I envy you, Tyler, for having a lovely family, but at my age, love isn't exactly easy to come by. Then Tyler, with a serious look, said,
"Karen, why don't you meet someone I know? He's a senior from college, a really nice guy, and he's single. I just have a feeling you two would hit it off."
"What? You don't have to go through all that trouble for me."
"No, I'm not just being nice. I just thought you and he might get along. If you're up for it, maybe the three of us could go out for drinks sometime."
Convinced by Tyler's enthusiastic, "He's really a great guy," I found myself nodding in agreement. After a while, Tyler set up a time for the three of us to go out for drinks.
Nice to meet you. I'm John Carpenter.
The man who appeared was soft-spoken and seemed kind. We introduced ourselves and started drinking together. The conversation went better than expected. Tyler and John were in the same tennis club in college and seemed to be close. They shared similar tastes in food and hobbies and quickly became good friends despite the age difference. After graduating, John became a government worker, while Tyler joined his current company. They still met up occasionally for meals. Tyler often mentioned he had a respected female boss. Curious, I asked John, maybe impolitely, "Why have you stayed single until now?"
Well, I had someone I thought of marrying in my 20s, but it ended after her infidelity. I've been somewhat wary of love since then.
What? That's actually true for me too. I never expected we'd have this in common. We looked at each other and shared a wry smile. Later, John and I exchanged contact information. After meeting a few times, we started dating. Tyler was thrilled to hear about it. Always kind and sincere, my relationship with John was going well. But as we continued dating, I started to wonder about something odd. After a while, when we were driving together, John suddenly said, "Let's avoid this road," and turned back. Or at a hotel on a trip, he'd say, "We can't stay in this room." Such incidents kept happening, and finally, I asked John the reason. He hesitantly replied,
Actually, I have what you might call a sixth sense.
I was speechless. Honestly, I had never believed in ghosts, and I never expected John to say something like that.
You might not believe it, but, for example, Karen, your guardian spirit, is an elderly woman.
What?
She has a mole under her left eye and shoulder-length hair, and she's wearing a purple cardigan.
I gasped. That was exactly how my maternal grandmother, who passed away when I was in high school, looked. She often wore a purple cardigan I had given her. Since then, I believed what John said. There were times when he would touch my shoulder, whisper something, and suddenly my shoulder would feel lighter, a mysterious experience. It seemed true that he had a sixth sense. His psychic ability didn't change how I felt about him. Our relationship smoothly continued, and after a year and a half, he proposed. I happily accepted, and we got married. We didn't have a wedding, but we threw a small party with friends. Tyler, who attended, cried with joy for our marriage, filling us with happiness. I can't thank Tyler enough for introducing me to John. A peaceful life with John began, but 6 months later, something unexpected happened. I found out I was pregnant. At 39, I never thought natural pregnancy was possible, and it was a complete shock. When I told John, he too was surprised but genuinely delighted.
I never imagined I'd become a father. This is the happiest thing ever.
John, I'll do my best. Let's build a happy family with this child.
Of course, Karen, I'll support you in every way, so don't hesitate to rely on me.
When we announced the pregnancy to my parents and in-laws, both were overjoyed. Especially John's parents, who blessed us with tears. True to their nature, my in-laws are wonderful people. Given the high-risk pregnancy, we were particularly careful in the early stages, but the baby developed well. John took great care of me, helping me through the difficult periods of morning sickness. Around 6 months into the pregnancy, when my belly began to show, Tyler at work told me he needed bereavement leave because his mother had passed away. While I was shocked, I agreed and showed concern for him, but he stoically said, "I'm okay." John and I decided to attend the funeral to express our condolences. Tyler, I wonder if he's all right.
I don't know. He was raised by a single mother, right? We need to be there to support him.
At the funeral home, a portrait of Tyler's mother, with a gentle smile, was displayed. After offering our condolences to Tyler, he tearfully thanked us sincerely.
John, Karen, thank you for coming.
Tyler then carried on admirably as the next of kin. After witnessing this, John and I left the venue. That night, we went to sleep worried about Tyler. Meanwhile, my pregnancy was going smoothly, the baby was healthy, and the due date was drawing near. 1 week before the due date, John had to go on a rare overnight business trip. It's probably not time yet, so it should be fine. I reassured a worried John as he left, but astonishingly, I went into labor that afternoon. However, with the wisdom of age, I managed to stay calm. After messaging John, I took a taxi to the hospital. Upon arrival, labor was progressing faster than expected, and I was quickly moved to the delivery room. I wished John could be with me, but there was no time for that now. I focused on giving birth, enduring the intense pain. Finally, our baby was born safely. It was a girl. I called her the name John and I had discussed. Welcome, little Shelley. I checked my phone again late at night. My husband had noticed my messages around 8 p.m., and there were loads of missed calls and messages from him. When I called, John answered immediately. She's born a healthy girl. Upon hearing this, he sighed with relief.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there for the birth. I'll be back first thing in the morning.
Okay, I'll be waiting. After the call, exhausted, I fell asleep. The next morning, While I was in the hospital room with the baby, John rushed in.
Karen, you did great. Where's our baby?
Right here. Come on, hold Shelly. I showed him our sleeping daughter. The emotional first meeting of father and child. I wondered what reaction he would show. I watched his face as he smiled and looked at our daughter. 3 seconds later, his face turned pale and he froze. I had expected him to be overjoyed, with a bright face and teary eyes. Curious, I asked my husband, "What's wrong?"
Nothing.
John said nothing, still shaken. "Talk to me, please." When I pressed him, he bluntly announced,
I'm going home.
"What? You're not going to hold Shelly or take pictures?"
I can't. Bye.
John actually left. Holding Shelly, I was left dumbfounded. To act like that in front of our child, what on earth? I felt suspicious of John. But before that, I had to take care of the baby. John didn't show his face at the hospital until discharge, and he kept ignoring my messages. On the day of discharge, I took a taxi home, and John was there. Hey, ignoring me and not showing up even once. What's the meaning of this? Without even glancing at the baby, he retorted,
What are you talking about? You betrayed me, giving birth to another man's child.
"What?" I could feel my blood boiling. "What are you talking about? Don't be ridiculous." Of course, I hadn't cheated, and Shelly was definitely John's child. But John, with a murky look, glared at me and said something even more shocking.
That child, she's Tyler's, isn't she?
What? Why would Tyler's name come up? He's married and just a colleague at work.
Then why is Tyler's mother the guardian spirit of this child?
What? According to John, Shelly has had a guardian spirit watching over her since birth, who looks just like the portrait of Tyler's mother we saw at the funeral. John was serious. He didn't seem to be lying. Why would Tyler's mom be the guardian spirit of Shelly, who's unrelated?
So, the only explanation is that you cheated and Shelly is Tyler's child, right?
Wait a minute. This doesn't make sense.
I'm going to call Tyler here right now. I'll make him confess.
John started calling with a furious tone. Eventually, Tyler arrived at our house. I explained the situation to him, but even he, aware of John's psychic abilities, was baffled. No matter how much he was pressed, there was nothing between Tyler and me. There was no affair to confess to. Then John, frustrated, said,
We're getting nowhere. The only option is to do a DNA test.
If that's what it takes for you to be convinced, John, I'll cooperate.
Thus, Tyler provided a sample, and a paternity test with Shelly was arranged. With scientific proof from the DNA test, I thought he would be convinced. So I agreed to it. However, I requested not only a paternity test between Tyler and Shelly, but also between John and Shelly. For the 3 weeks until the results came, John barely spoke to me and didn't try to touch Shelly. It was heartbreaking, but I endured, thinking it was just until the DNA results clarified everything. After 3 weeks, the results finally arrived. John, Tyler, and I checked them together. While John opened the envelope, all I hoped for was that he would see the results and feel reassured. But as John pulled out a sheet of paper, he turned red with anger and started yelling.
See, our results show a biological relation between the baby and Tyler.
What? Tyler and I exclaimed in unison and looked at the report. Indeed, it stated there was a biological relation between Tyler and Shelly. What does this mean? Shelly is supposed to be John's child. I was completely confused. It was no wonder I was perceived as a traitor. John, yelling at Tyler, was about to get violent. It was a total chaos. Then it hit me, and I pulled out another sheet of paper from the envelope. John, look at this. It was the DNA report between my husband and Shelley. The result was...
What's this? Probability of parentage, 99.999%.
John murmured softly. I said tearfully, yes, look closely. Tyler's result shows a biological relationship, but the matching rate is low. John, it's clearly proven here that you are Shelley's parent.
What?
The three of us compared the two reports. Clearly, Shelley was John's child. Yet, there was also a biological relationship with Tyler. What does this mean?
Could it be that John and I are related?
Tyler muttered, pale-faced. That made sense when you thought about it. John had his biological parents. Meanwhile, Tyler's only mother had just passed away. To unravel this mystery, we had no choice but to ask John's parents. We immediately went to my in-laws' house with Shelley. The sudden visit surprised my in-laws. When we explained everything, they welcomed us with serious faces.
Dad, Mom, what on earth is going on here? If you know something, please tell us.
At my husband's plea, my father-in-law answered,
John, you saw the family certificate when we got married, right? Did you ever really look at it?
I was so caught up in the marriage, I didn't pay much attention.
Then my mother-in-law, with a wry smile, quietly said,
We thought we'd tell you when you noticed. John, you are adopted.
What?
Eventually, my in-laws began to explain. There was no doubt that John and Tyler were brothers. John's biological parents had divorced while pregnant with their second child, Tyler, when John was 2 years old. The details of the divorce and its reasons were unclear, but it seemed the biological father took John, while the biological mother took Tyler. Soon after the separation, the biological father died in a car accident. It seemed impossible to contact the biological mother. That's when my childless in-laws adopted John. They raised him as their own ever since.
Can it be? That's unbelievable.
To the shaken John and Tyler, my father-in-law said kindly,
Your real mother must have always cared for John. That's why she's been protecting Shelley as a guardian spirit. Her love is genuine.
Then my mother-in-law added,
But John, we have loved you as our own child all the same. That's the truth. We're really sorry for keeping this silent.
Dad, Mom.
John started to cry, embracing his adoptive parents. Tyler and I watched, holding back our tears. John and Tyler, now known to be long-lost brothers, initially felt awkward but gradually became closer than before. John apologized repeatedly for doubting me, and he became very affectionate toward Shelley, so I decided to let bygones be bygones. Tyler also grew fond of his niece, and we started meeting as a family. Later, my husband said,
The real parents for me are the ones who raised me, but I'm also grateful to my biological mother who's protecting Shelley. After all, she led me to my irreplaceable brother.
We plan to visit Tyler's mother's grave soon. I want to thank her for bringing my husband, brother-in-law, and Shelley into my life. We want to continue living happily as a close-knit family.